I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings,
There's always a pecking order. The little peckers never mess with the big peckers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legend podcast, and I have one of my favorite guests, Jerry Brainham. And Jerry, we're here to talk about, unfortunately, some really bad news that happened in the world of bodybuilding, and that was the passing of Franco Columbu, who died on Friday, August 30th, at 78 years old in a drowning accident out in Sardinia, where he was born. And this was a big shock for everybody, I think, right, Jerry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was stunned. As I said, I thought it was a hoax at first, because you always hear about the bodybuilders. I mean, with the social media online the last couple of years, almost every year some bodybuilder said to have died. It turns out to be fake. Mm-hmm. So my first reaction, but of course, within a couple of minutes, I realized I was absolutely stunned. I didn't expect that at all, because I thought, Frank was the one guy I thought would live a long time, because of being from Sardinia, where the men tend to live. A lot of men over there live to over 100. You know, I just still can't understand it. I mean, apparently he might have had some sort of heart attack. Yeah. And I'm just surprised by that alone. You know, I mean, I would think that Franco was a pretty healthy guy. I mean, he looked healthy when I last saw him. Yeah. He looked fine. I mean, he's an older guy. I mean, everybody ages, but he didn't look in really bad shape. I mean, of course, he doesn't look like, the two-time Mr. Olympia, but, mm-hmm. Who does 38 years old? Right. Right. But he didn't look overweight. He didn't look, there was no obvious risk factors. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully more information will come out as to why he would, die like that. I just don't understand it, Yeah.
Like you were saying, though, before we started talking, he really doesn't train that much anymore. He hasn't really trained like he used to, right?
Right. I've heard from several people that he practically gave it up. Occasionally he'd go to the gym, and you've probably seen the videos. He'd work out with Arnold for old time's sake. Right. But he didn't go to Gold's Gym at all, I can tell you that. And if he trained, I don't know where he trained, but and what people tell me is that he hasn't trained. He's trained very little in the last, who knows, 15 years even. Nothing. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, put him down or anything, but if you saw him in person, I mean, he doesn't look like a guy who ever touched a weight.
Right. He looks real small. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the Franco that was Mr. Olympia, he was, unrecognizable as there's just no muscle left at all. Yeah. Which kind of lends credence to the idea that I was told that he basically gave up training. I don't know whether he did any other exercise. I know he was an active chiropractor. He was still doing that. He's moving people around all day. Yeah. Maybe he can that exercise. I don't know. I don't know.
I always was wondering if you ever had any back problems from all that weight he used to deadlift, all the heavy stuff he used to do. I mean, he did that for so many years. I was wondering if you had any, you look at Ronnie Coleman with all the problems he's had. And, I mean, Franco used to, he only weighed 185 pounds. He was deadlifting over 700 pounds.
I saw him do that a couple of times at the original Gold's Gym. And I never heard of him having any, of course, the most famous injury, and I'm sure you're familiar, that Franco had was he competed in the World's Strongest Man. Yeah. What was carrying a refrigerator or something on his back?
Refrigerator strapped on his
back. I think people could see that if they look it up on YouTube. Yeah. He's running with the refrigerator on his back, and his knee just went like to a 90 degree. It was horrible to look at. Terrible. And John, I mean, you probably know better. Wasn't it like within 2 years he went back and won another Olympia title, right? Not long after that.
It was 5, because it was from 77 he heard it, and then he won it in 81.
I got it. Okay, because I know he won an Olympia after that, but I'm not. I don't think he had any injuries, and I can tell you one thing I know about Franco: he was genuinely really strong. Yeah. I mean, pound for pound, he was like twice as strong as Arnold. Right. I mean, and I was just telling somebody the other day, the interesting thing to me about Franco, because I'll tell you how I first heard about him in a second, but I've seen him train many times at Gold's Gym, the original one. We're talking the original one where Pumping Iron was filmed. Right. And I never saw him train hard. I've never seen the guy train hard. It was almost like casual. He'd just, pump out a couple of reps. He never had any set routine. He'd do a bench press and he'd do a squat. he never seemed to follow any particular routine. Of course, he looked good back then. He looked in great shape. But, I mean, Arnold, on the other hand, when he trained for the Olympia, I mean, he trained so hard, he used to fall on the ground. He really trained hard. But I never saw Franco one time train hard, yet he looked good. I mean, that is amazing. I mean, I've seen him lift some very heavy weights. I saw him in Arnold do deadlifts not long after Franco first came. I think Franco went up to something like more than 700 pounds, and he did it. In fact, there's a picture, actually a photo that Artie Zeller took. I wish I could find it. I tried to find it. Of Franco, he's deadlifting in the original Gold's Gym. There's a big dog next to him. That
yeah, I've seen that.
It's a Great Dane. He belonged to a friend of mine. I can't remember the guy's name. So long ago. That everybody loved that dog. He was a great dog. He's sitting there, and Franco's doing the deadlift. In the background, you can see a guy sitting on a chair wearing a leather jacket. That's me.
Oh, really?
Me.
Wow.
I've tried. I wanted to put that photo on Facebook. I just can't find it. But if you ever see that, I'm kind of leaned back in this chair, right across from Franco, and I'm wearing this leather jacket. But no, he was a very strong guy. And a funny story, I can tell you how Arnold first told me about him. I got to know Arnold, as you know, in past interviews. I got friendly with him very, very soon after he came up to this country.
Right.
And I think it was just a couple of months after he was here. It was at Gold's Gym, and he came up to me and he said, "Do you know who Franco Columbu is?" I said, "I've seen him in the magazines, Arnold." I said, "I think didn't he win a Miss Universe or something like that? I know he's won a lot of titles in Europe." He said, "Yeah." He says, "He's my good friend. We used to train in Munich together." He says, "I want to bring him over here." So I said, "Gee, he looks like a really big guy like you, Arnold." He said, Arnold started laughing. He says, "No, he's 5'4". And I thought Franco was this tall guy. I couldn't tell,
Right.
I said, "So that's incredible." I said, and then he said to me, he said, "Yeah, I'm going to get Joe," meaning Joe Weider, to bring him over. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, who shows up? There's Franco in the gym. Arnold told me about it. I knew he was coming,
Did you get to meet him when he came over, Jerry?
I got to meet him. Unfortunately, I got a bad start with Franco. It's a funny story because what happens is they had a small dressing room at Gold's Gym, the original, upstairs, very small. It had a shower there, very small dressing area, no lockers. You just hung up your clothes on hangers. They had a bathroom and no door, And, Arnold used to sometimes practice his posing up there. And sometimes Franco would practice with him. So I was up there and I was changing into my gym clothes, and Arnold and Franco were posing, right? So I looked at Arnold. This is right before one of the Mr. Olympias, the early ones,
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Arnold, Arnold, you look in great shape. You look fantastic. And Franco was posing next to him. But the thing is, I wasn't that impressed with Franco because his torso was tremendous. His back width was great.
Yeah.
I mean, he had great shoulders, but I felt his arms were too small. And he had, the best way to describe Franco to me, he had the torso. This is why I thought he was tall. He had the torso of a guy about 6'1" in his 5'4" body, and his arms were more for a short guy, and so were his legs. So to me, his symmetry was off.
Right.
And my thing, I always tell people, my big thing has always been symmetry.
Right.
Like when I judge physique contests, whether it's male or female, I always considered the whole body. Every muscle had to be in proportion and symmetrical. I didn't like the guys with just the big arms and no pecs or big thighs and no cat. I'd vote them down because to me you had to have a complete body. And I know you've always trained like that too.
Yeah.
So, I thought Franco was fantastic in some ways. His torso, his back, his pecs. But, I just wasn't that impressed. So at the time, I think it was 20 years old. The brain doesn't fully mature until you're 26. So I blame it on my immaturity. I didn't compliment Franco. And he kind of looked at me funny. But I know it sounds weird. He never liked me after that.
Right.
He never spoke to me. It was very, he'd say hello, we'd talk, but it was almost like reluctant. He didn't even want to talk to me. Mm-hmm. He never forgot it. He took it as a personal slur.
Right.
I realize in retrospect I should have said something, but I was a kid. I just couldn't lie. Yeah. I just came out of my mouth. Arnold looked great to me. I wasn't that impressed by Franco,
Right.
Now, I'm not saying he wasn't a great bodybuilder or anything like that. Of course, I mean, like I say, I think I already told you the story in one of the past interviews about that pec thing. Remember about that pec thing where Frank, he had this weird cut. If you look in the photo, this right in his pecs on the top.
Yeah.
And Arnold came up to me one time. In fact, there was that same conversation when he told me Franco was coming. He said, that split that everybody's so impressed with Franco, that pec split he has. I said, yeah. I said, how did he get that, Arnold? I've never seen that in anybody. Arnold started laughing. He says, that's the funny part. He says, Franco had rickets, a vitamin D deficiency as a child. Really? And he has a malformation in the bones in his chest. And the way the muscle attaches, it created this kind of crevice. He's always had it. So as his pecs hypertrophy from training, it became more noticeable because his pecs got thicker. He says, all the bodybuilders trying to get that cut. He says, Arnold thought that was really hilarious.
Wow. That's hilarious.
But if you ever see the photos, like, when Franco's doing this kind of pose, you could see it. It was actually a bone deformation from having childhood rickets.
Wow, I never knew that.
You also see it in Franco's legs. If you look at some photos, he's slightly bow-legged.
Yeah.
And you see, and that also was from the rickets. If you look at children with rickets, they always have that same look that Franco had, slightly bow-legged. That's again due to malformation of the bones from vitamin D deficiency. Yeah, an interesting thing about him.
I think that's why he fell with the refrigerator, because they said his legs were bowed and he tried to run with it, because he was moving pretty good compared to the other guys, and then he tried to run with it and then he fell and broke his leg.
And it makes perfect sense to me. I bet you that probably was related to it. I'm sure it was. Because his knee came out on an angle, and having that kind of pressure, boom, you take one wrong step and there it goes.
Right.
It's a credit to the guy that he came back and was able to Mr. Olympia. I mean, that looked like a horrible disabling injury. I remember Jean-Pierre Fuchs. You remember Jean-Pierre Fuchs? Yeah. I mean, this famous thing about when he was squatting for a flex photo session, he's squatting, and he used heavy weight, he used fake weights. His knee went right out, the same thing, way out, completely out, and he never really came back after that. No. And GP, to me, when I first met him, I remember looking at him when he competed in Arnold shows with Bill Graham. And I said, my God, look at this guy. This guy is definitely Mr. Olympia. He had everything, John, everything. Yeah. Back was wide, shoulders, arms, legs, calves. The guy had everything. But then like a year or two later, he got that knee thing. That was the end of it. He never really came back. He still went out to train. He's a nice guy. But getting back to Franco, I mean, like I say, he was reluctant always to talk to me, right? I never really got to know the guy that well because of that. I mean, it was just hello, goodbye. He just, I can only, we never discussed it, but I can only think that time I didn't compliment him had a lot to do with it.
Right,
I took a picture of that Joe Weider's and Royal a couple years ago. I put it on Facebook the other day. I mean, you can see in the photo, he's not even smiling.
All those years later, he never forgot it.
After all those years, still, honestly, I felt really bad about, when I read about him dying, because, it's like we're all in a brotherhood, John. I mean, it's like a family. When one of us dies, and I'm not putting myself in the category of Franco. He was an incredible international champion. What I'm saying is, as a bodybuilder, you kind of feel something towards him. You feel bad. It's like a family. I think a lot of people are feeling that now about Franco,
Yeah, plus he comes from that old school bodybuilding that we all love. And, we just had Ed Corney pass on the first of the year. And that was, I felt really bad about that too. And same thing with Franco. I mean, I was kind of like depressed for a couple of days. I don't even really know Franco. I met him a couple of times, but I'm sure he didn't know me. But I just felt like you feel like you know him because we read about him for 40 years now,
Yeah. Well, I had a delayed reaction myself. The first one was shock when I first read it, looked at, heard that he passed away. And then as the hours went by, I got really sad. Yeah. Because think about exactly what you're saying. Franco, Ed Corney, Serge Nubret, a lot of the guys from the Pumping Iron movie, Serge Olympia. I mean, they're all gone. And it reminds you of your own mortality. You can't help thinking, well, how much more time do I have? I mean, you could slip into depression. You have to snap out of it really fast, which I had to do.
Yeah.
I had to get my mind onto something else because you could spiral into a big depression,
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
funny how you said about how he trained, because I interviewed Mike Katz before, and he said nobody could train with Franco, not only because he was so strong, like nobody could do the weights he would do, but he said he would, like you just said, he would do all kinds of different stuff. He'd go over and do a different body part, and it never made any sense,
That's the thing I remember. I remember watching him train. I'd see him do, let's say, bench presses, and then he'd go and do squats. And I'm thinking, how come he's doing chest and legs? That's a weird combination.
Right.
And then he'd go and do side laterals, It had no organization at all. And I used to say to myself, but he looked great.
Right.
Tank top, he looked, those pecs sticking out.
Yeah.
And I said, how does this guy look so good training like that? He broke all the rules.
Yeah.
And he did lift, and he did lift heavy weights. I mean, maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
He was extremely strong. Easily one of the strongest guys for his size I've ever seen by far. Just tremendous strength.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
And then when you look at the early pictures of him when he was a boxer in Italy, he was like 137 pounds. And
Right.
where he came from, I mean, he looked like he had no genetics at all for bodybuilding. And to become one of the strongest, best bodybuilders ever is amazing.
True. I saw another funny story about Franco is Arnold. It was, again, the original Gold's Gym. Arnold Franco were training there one night. And it was this kind of nutty guy, and fancied himself a boxer, right? And this boxer and Arnold got in an argument about, so stupid, the argument. I'll never forget it. It was about, you remember the bodybuilder Rick Wayne, the famous body. The argument was about whether Rick Wayne took a lot of steroids. This boxer, who never even knew Rick Wayne, never even met him, was saying that Rick Wayne was all steroids. His whole physique was steroids. And Arnold was a good friend of Rick Wayne. And he says, no, he says, Rick didn't hardly use that. He didn't use that much steroids. So, the discussion got more and more heated. And I'm looking at this, and I couldn't believe it. They started to get into a fight.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And I remember, the guy's trying to hit Arnold, and Arnold's like ducking, and he lands a couple of punches on Arnold, and then he puts Arnold in a headlock. And in the meantime, Franco is standing there, and Franco's yelling out, "Kill him, Arnold! Kill him! Kill him!" Franco's yelling out. Franco jump in. He doesn't try and help Arnold. He's just yelling, "Kill him, Arnold! Kill him!" and Arnold gets the guy in the headlock. And what I saw next absolutely stunned me. The guy bit Arnold. He bit Arnold. As Arnold had him in the Arnold had him in the headlock. He bites him. And I think Dan Howard was the manager of Gold's that time. He sees the ruckus. He runs over, breaks it up. Right. He breaks up the fight. And so the guy's standing there. He's screaming how he's going to beat the hell out of Arnold. He says, I want you to show up in the boxing. They used to have a boxing gym about a mile away in Santa Monica. He says, you show up at the boxing gym, I'm going to beat the hell out of you with all your muscles. I'm going to knock you out, blah, blah, blah. So Arnold says in a very calm voice, he says, why wait? He says, why don't we just go in the alley right now? and sure enough, the guy just keeps on, instead of answering, he keeps yelling, walks away.
Right.
He basically chickened out because Arnold, let's go in the alley right now, and the guys want to go. So luckily the fight that Arnold took was only Dan Howard broke it up fast enough, but Arnold wasn't really injured.
Yeah.
He actually was a nutcase. Unfortunately, he died about within a year or two of a drug overdose. I think he was on drugs that night, and it made no sense.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, even as a kid, I was looking at thinking, what a stupid reason to get in a fight with a Rick Wayne. You got to be kidding me.
Right.
I mean, you could never get, if somebody said to me, if I knew Rick Wayne well enough, and they said, well, Rick Wayne, I'd say, well, he didn't. And the guy started yelling. I'd say, well, you walk up to your opinion. I'd walk away. I'm not going to fight the guy. Right. Believe me, you want. I mean, if you don't even know the man, you want to say he took a lot of steroids.
Yeah.
Believe me, you want. I mean, I can't change your beliefs, but it's not worth fighting over.
Yeah.
But remember, Arnold didn't start the fight. This crazy guy did.
Yeah.
But I can still remember seeing Franco. It's like, kill him, Arnold, kill him!
I thought you said Franco was going to jump in because he was a boxer. So
that's what I thought. I said, uh-oh. Because Franco was standing like a foot away. I'm thinking, if Franco jumps in, this guy's toast.
Right.
Because, Franco, this guy thinks he's a boxer. Franco really was a boxer.
Right.
And I saw Franco punch him. Franco still had the speed. He knew how to punch. This guy would have been knocked out, even though this guy was about 6'2". It's about, a little taller than Arnold. Franco would have knocked him out with probably 1 or 2 punches.
Yeah.
He's just lucky that Franco, didn't jump. I guess he figured Arnold could handle him. Because Arnold told me when he was living in Germany, he used to get in a lot of bar fights.
Yeah.
So and I think Franco was with him a couple of times. So I guess Franco figured that Arnold could handle himself.
Right.
That's
That's a great story. Did you ever see? Go ahead.
Could you picture? You get a mental picture of Arnold and Franco in bar fights.
Right.
I don't know. It's hilarious.
I know.
But anyway, go ahead.
Did you ever see Franco get in a fight?
No.
Okay.
I never did. No. Franco was actually a pretty laid back guy. In fact, I don't think I ever saw him get mad. He was a pretty laid back guy. He had a good sense of humor. Like I say, I didn't talk to him a lot, but other people told me that. He was pretty liked. But I think a lot of people probably knew about his boxing background and didn't want to mess with him.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you really are some sort of skilled fighter, you don't want to get in a fight with a guy who was even an amateur boxer, because they know how to move, they know how to punch. It's very dangerous. You can get hurt.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people. Plus, of course, everyone knew about Franco's prodigious strength. It's not just a punch. This guy had the strength where it'd be like getting hit by a train when his fist went against his face.
Right.
You'd fight out cold. Because he had unusual strength to go with the fighting ability.
Right.
So no, I don't think anyone ever threatened Franco. No, I don't think so.
Well, I wonder, if he was outside the gym though, and somebody didn't know who he was. He's a short guy, so even though he was muscular, I could see some guy picking on him or something.
That's possible, but if it happened, I never heard about it.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth. Yeah. But Franco, even though he seemed to have a grudge against, I think he was a nice guy, and he's not the kind of guy that would people would pick a fight with. He didn't walk around and start trouble or anything like that. So it's like I say, it's possible that it happened, but I never heard about it, so I don't think it probably happened, because he just troublemaker. He wasn't one of those guys looking for trouble. He just happy-go-lucky kind of guy, kept to himself.
Yeah.
Pretty nice guy.
Well, it seemed like him and Arnold were perfect for each other, because they both loved life and they both had a good time. They both had great senses of humor. So, one of the things that I felt really bad for when I heard Franco died was I felt bad for Arnold, because I know they've been friends for 54 years and they're best friends all this time. So it had to be so hard for Arnold losing his friend like that.
Well, the thing is, that's the first thing I thought about after, realizing that he died. I said, oh my God, I said to myself, Arnold's going to be absolutely devastated, because they were like brothers, those two.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
I don't know if you saw this. Arnold released a statement about Franco, and you probably saw it by now. He said that, don't worry, Franco, I'm going to take care of your wife and daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That close they were. Arnold would never let anything happen to Franco's family. They were like brothers.
Yeah.
And the odd part was that Arnold was not close with his own brother, whose name I forget. I can't remember his name, but when Arnold did not like his brother too much, because Arnold's father favored the brother over Arnold.
Yeah.
He's the one that the father thought was going to be great. Arnold, he looked at Arnold as I know it sounds funny when you think about Arnold, of all people consider, but that's the way it was. The brother was much better looking than Arnold, and this and that. And so I remember Arnold telling me the story about his brother. We were both over the home of a mutual friend whose sister had just died, and the guy was really, falling apart. He was very close with his sister. So Arnold tried to cheer him up by telling him about his brother. And he says, my brother, he was driving on some highway in Germany, and he was in a car accident, or he went off a cliff. I don't know what he said. And as Arnold was telling the story, he's smiling. In other words, it's almost like he was happy that his brother died. I'll never forget. And I'm looking at Zane, I'm thinking, gee, that's a funny way to console the guy,
Yeah.
smart about how his brother died, you know?
Right.
But, you know, to Arnold's credit, this guy's son, Arnold brought him over and basically, you know about it. He, you know, he gave him a place to live and he paid his way through college. Now the guy's a lawyer. I mean, the son of the brother. I mean, so Arnold, I guess he had some feelings for his brother after all. But the way he told that story was very odd. You know, I mean, it was almost like remember in Pumping Iron when he's talking about not going to the father's funeral,
right?
And he said, you know, I can't be distracted, you know, and he's like laughing,
smiling,
right? I mean, I don't know, what can I say? Arnold's a different type of character,
right.
But related to Franco, I think he was extremely upset. That really was his best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I can only imagine. I mean, he must really be hurting. I mean, they were like close as. I mean, Arnold, of course, put Franco in a lot of his movies. Franco tried to do his own movie career. You know, you probably know he tried to be an action hero himself.
Right.
Did a couple low-budget movies, but they never went anywhere. You know, he just.
Yeah.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess he just didn't have Arnold's charisma or something like that. But of course, Franco, you know, he met a woman years ago. I can't remember her name, but she got him into chiropractic training.
Oh, Anita, right? His first wife?
That's right, Anita, yeah. And, you know, he went to chiropractic college and he became a chiropractor. And, you know, that he greatly enjoyed that. And as far as I know, I spoke to a guy in the gym the other day. He had just gotten an adjustment from Franco like just a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. So Franco was still doing the chiropractic work, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, they were just so loyal to each other. And I just read this article about the 1980 Mr. Olympia that Arnold won. And, you know, Franco went over there with him. And there was one point in the contest where Arnold was standing in bad lighting. So Franco's yelling at him from the stage, you know, from the audience. He's like, you know, telling him to go over to the other side of the stage where the better lighting was. And Arnold was ignoring him or didn't hear him. So Franco actually runs backstage, grabs a towel, and he goes on stage and he starts like taking the sweat off of Arnold's forehead. And he's like, "Here, Arnold, here's the towel." And then he whispers in his ear, "You got to go to the other side of the stage. It's better lighting over there, you know." And then Arnold raises Franco's hand. He goes, "Hey, it's Franco Columbu, Mr. Olympia."
Well, a lot of people got annoyed about that.
Yeah,
that was
I
like
know.
So it's a pretty controversial thing there. But of course, you know the promoter of that show was Paul Graham,
right? Who
was an old friend of Arnold. So you know he kind of let him get away with it. But I remember, I could tell you that Olympia was at the '72 Olympia. Remember where Sergio showed up in really good shape? I think it was held in Germany. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And right after that, I wasn't there, but right after the contest, I ran into a couple of the guys who compete, including Frank Zane, a couple of other guys. I can't remember who exactly, but I asked them, I said, who deserved to win? And every person told me that Sergio deserved to win. Sergio was better. Arnold was good, but Sergio was in incredible shape that night.
Right. Except
this person. There's only one bodybuilder that told me that Arnold should have won, and I guess you could probably guess who it was. Franco.
Right.
You know, I actually spoke to Franco. It's one of the few discussions we had.
Yeah.
I said, "Frank, you were there, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did Arnold do it?" He said, "Absolutely, absolutely. He was best. He had the definition." He's going on and on and on. And I hadn't seen photos yet. So, you know, I believed him. I said, okay, well, Franco says maybe Arnold should have won. And even though Frank Zane said no and all the other guys said no.
Yeah.
Then the magazines took about 2 months to come out. When the magazines come out, I look at the photos and I said, wait a minute, Sergio should have won this contest.
Right.
It was better. That particular show, Sergio was better.
Yeah.
You know? Of course, you know, the promoter was Albert Busek, who another close friend of Arnold. So, and again, I'm not talking hanky-panky. I can't say that. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But you know, when one of your close friends is the promoter, just like Paul Graham was the promoter of the Australian in 1980, you know, you have to wonder about that. You know what I mean? Especially because there's controversy involved. Yeah. If Arnold's the winner, then it makes no difference who the promoter is. But these were controversial because some of the other guys, like, you know, the 80 show, some people felt that other people were better than Arnold. And of course, in the 72, almost the majority of people I've spoken to felt that Sergio had that contest, the majority, you know. So, you know, I don't know. Again, I don't want to cast aspersions. I don't have any evidence.
Yeah.
So, but makes you wonder, you know.
Right. Well, I remember too after that 1981, I think Muscle Digest did a bunch of interviews. I remember it was a great article because they interviewed everybody. They interviewed Mike Mentzer, Boyer Coe, Frank Zane, all the guys that were in it. They interviewed a couple judges. They interviewed Joe Gold. They interviewed Franco, and I think out of everybody, only Joe Gold and Franco thought Arnold should have won. You know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Joe Gold. That's right. I just remembered that. Joe Gold did think that Arnold should have won. Joe Gold loved Arnold.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Randy Roach. Randy. Did you ever interview
wrote Muscle, Smoke, and Mirrors. Yeah.
Right. Randy Roach wrote a book about both Olympias, the 80 and the 81.
That's the one I was reading today. Yeah.
Yeah, and he interviewed a whole bunch of people. In fact, I tell you, we're talking about it now. This book has been sitting on my desk for months. I haven't. Here's the book right here. This is the book.
Yeah.
This is Randy. It's called Smoke, Muscle, Mirror, Volume 3, The Comebacks, 1980 Arnold, 1981 Franco. I haven't had a chance to read it, but now I'm definitely going to read this the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Especially Franco's passing, but I looked through it, and he really went to a lot of depth, interviewed a whole bunch of people about these contests, because those happen to be, I think you'll agree with me, John, maybe the 72 is controversial, but these two Olympias, 80 and 81, were by far the most controversial. I don't know if you agree with me, of all these Olympias.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's, those two in particular, in the sense that a lot of people felt that Arnold shouldn't have won the 80 and Franco shouldn't have won the 81.
Right,
but
right.
I'll read the book and get more. Randy did a fantastic job. His books are just incredible. I love his books.
Speaking of books, Jared, did you ever read this book, Coming On Strong by Franco?
I did. I actually had that book. I sure did. Was that his first book?
I think it was his second one.
He wrote a nutrition book I had also.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. It was a nutrition book. It wasn't a bad book. It was actually pretty good for the time.
Yeah.
I remember it being pretty accurate. I mean, it's so long ago. I don't remember exactly, but I remember thinking that, it seemed to be pretty accurate to me. I mean, he didn't say anything there that I contested or found fault with.
Right.
But I remember Joe Weider wanted to put, Franco's name on some of my articles a couple of times, and I didn't want to go along with that because I used to work really hard on those articles. So I made a deal with Joe. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you do it this way? Put by Franco Columbu as told to Jerry Branham, and I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Even though I wrote every word of the article.
Right.
And I could tell you, again, I don't want to, say anything bad, but I can tell you that 100% of Franco's articles in the Weider magazines were not written by Franco Columbu.
Mm-hmm.
They were written by ghostwriters, staff writers.
Right.
That thing. He didn't write any of them.
Yeah.
And then same for Arnold didn't write any of the articles either. But I think most people are aware of that.
Yeah. This one was written with George Fells, and it's an excellently written book. The Coming On Strong. Yeah. It's basically his biography, his autobiography. But it was really, it's witty and it really is funny and it keeps you going, and it was a great written book. So I'm sure Franco didn't write it, but it was really an entertaining book.
So if it says a co-author, as a rule of thumb, any book where you see a co-author, I can tell you is about 99% written by the co-author.
Yeah.
You think the only thing that the other name contributed was information.
Right.
That the writer, professional writer, will write, but in other words, the first person actually didn't write a word. It's the second name. That's the way all books are.
Yeah.
And as long as it's co-writer, you can always know that the co-writer wrote the actual book.
Yeah, exactly.
Arnold's books. You remember Arnold Education of a Bodybuilder? I think that wasn't that his first book. I think.
Yep.
That Doug something or other was the co-author. I remember.
Yeah.
That was written by Doug, whoever his name is. He wrote the whole book.
Right.
Of course, Arnold did give him the information.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fiction book, meaning that Arnold had to give him the information to write about, but the actual writing was done by the other guy, which makes it easy for Arnold because he gets credit for writing the book, which is kind of sad for the writers because they did all the work.
Right.
That's the way it is. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
That's why I never liked ghostwriting for that reason. If I do all the work, I want the credit.
Sure.
Sure. I call me an egomaniac. I don't know, but that's the way. To me, writing is if you do writing well, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And to just give it away like that, I always had a problem with that.
Right. Hey, did you ever get to see Franco compete?
Let me think. Did I? Let me think. No, actually, I don't think I did.
Wow.
I don't think. No, no, I don't. I never actually saw him compete. That's the funny thing.
You didn't see the 76 or the 81 Olympias that he won?
No, I didn't see that. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw him training in the gym for those contests, and I saw what he looked like, but I didn't actually see him compete.
Yeah.
I wasn't at those contests. I
Yeah,
would have liked to have been.
When I was going over his biography yesterday, his contest history and stuff, it was amazing how many shows he won. I mean, I think in 1970 he won the Mr. Europe overall for a short guy. That was impressive. And then he won Mr. Universe overall, Mr. International. Then he won Mr. World in 1971. And then he started competing in the Olympia every year after that. You know, from 72 up to 76, he did the Olympia every year. So
That's a tremendous. I think if I remember correctly, I think he met Arnold at a contest in the that would have to be in the 60s.
65,
where, yeah. I think Arnold had won the Junior Europe contest.
Right.
And I'm not sure what show that Franco was in or whether he was competing. He might have been competing as a powerlifter.
Yeah.
And there's that famous photo of him and Arnold standing together, and Franco's in the powerlifting outfit. You know, very small back then. You know, but that's where they met. You know, and I remember him, Arnold telling me how you know, he used to run a gym in Munich, and you know, he was just, all he did is run the gym. He says, but him and Franco would like fool around, and they'd run around, and you know, they had a Coca-Cola machine in the middle of the gym. He told me some funny stories, but him and Franco trained at that gym in Munich.
Yeah.
I think it might have been owned by Albert Busick, that gym.
Okay.
And Arnold managed the gym for. I'm not 100% sure on that. All I know is that Arnold said that he managed, right before he came to the United States, he was managing a gym, and he says, he laughed about it. He says, I said, well, was it a lot of work? And he laughed. He says, I didn't do anything. I said, you didn't sign up members, nothing? He says, no. He says, they said I was the manager. All I did is work out, me and Franco. That's it. He said, I never did anything. Yeah. Other people signed up members. I didn't do a thing.
Right.
In fact, an early conversation Arnold said to me once, he says, I've never worked a day in my life.
Really?
I never heard anyone say that. I said, I started working when I was a kid. I was delivering newspapers when I was like 10 years old.
Right.
I couldn't, a guy who never worked a day in his life, you know? and I get a kick. This is related to Franco too. In Arnold's biographies, he always talks about being a bricklayer. He said it just the other day.
Yeah.
About how him and Franco used to do bricklaying. And there's photos of him up on a roof, you know, wearing this belt, you know, you know, with the equipment on it, and I think he said it was something called pumping bricks, or you know. But see, the truth of that is that Arnold did do that occasionally, but he made it look like he did that for several months regularly, where they go out and work and do bricklaying. Mm-hmm. That is a myth. Arnold did it occasionally with Franco because he liked to hang out with Franco. They'd have a lot of fun together. They'd joke while they were doing this stuff. Right. But he did that as a consistent job. That's a myth. Right. He did that to make it look like you know, how hard he worked, and he did these menial jobs before he became, you know, this rich famous guy. It's just a myth. I'm telling you. How do I know? Because I'd see Arnold in the gym when he was supposedly doing the bricklaying. He was there every day working out. The only way he could have done the bricklaying is if he did it at maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. I doubt he was doing that, or he did it after 8 o'clock at night. I don't think that was possible either. No. I know for a fact, because I do know friends, the guys who actually, you know, worked with Arnold and Franco on the bricklaying. So he did it occasionally, but it was not a steady job. That's a myth. Right. It was not a steady job. No.
I heard that before too. Yeah, I heard a few people say that too.
I mean, you know, Arnold. I mean, even in one of his videos, he showed this wall in Venice that him and Franco built. I mean, it's true. They built a wall, but it took him like 2 days. It wasn't like a 6-month job. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the thing about Franco is he really did work as a bricklayer. That was true.
Yeah.
That was true. He was a full-time bricklayer. And, you know, him and Arnold were so close that Arnold would just show up and they'd have fun together. When Arnold and Franco were together, it was always fun. No matter what they did, whether it was laying bricks or hanging out in Hawaii, you know, they were like, like they just always had fun together. These guys, or to the end of time,
Right.
They played chess, they did everything. These guys were, I mean, seriously, they were like closer than brothers.
Yeah.
Arnold, I always got the feeling that Arnold would have given his arm and vice versa for Franco.
Right.
Which kind of adds to the tragedy, of Franco passing, because you realize these were more than friends.
Yeah.
Much more than the average friends. They were the best of friends you could possibly be. It's the best way to describe it. And I did witness that a lot.
Yeah, one of the tributes I read was from Maria Shriver, and she was talking about Franco and said she considered Franco like a member of the family, and I guess Franco was the godfather for their first daughter, Christina.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised because Maria is famous because she didn't like a lot of Arnold's bodybuilding friends.
Yeah.
In fact, when Arnold, I met Maria right before he married Arnold. I mean, right before she married Arnold. It was right before, I think, the first Conan movie. Arnold was going to Spain. I ran into him and her in a liquor store in Santa Monica. And, Arnold was, I remember he was driving a Mercedes, and he introduced me because, I heard that he was going out with her, but I never met her.
Mm-hmm.
He says, this is Maria, this is my good friend Jerry. And so she, how you doing? She was friendly, and I said, Arnold, we talked about how he was going to Spain to do this Conan movie. I said, hey, Arnold, that's going to be fantastic because I was familiar with Conan. I said, perfect. You're going to. I said, it's going to be a great hit. I said, perfect casting. They couldn't got a better guy, Arnold. And I remember the thing about it. I remember that Arnold. It's the only time I saw him with gray hair on the side.
Yeah.
It's the only time. I think I told you that. For some reason, he had let his hair. He wasn't putting any dye in it. I remember he was still a young guy back then. But he had the side of his hair was gray. It's the only time I saw him with gray hair. Anyway, the funny thing is the next day I'm walking down Main Street in Santa Monica. Remember, I just met her the day before, Maria Shriver. So she's walking by and I said, hey, Maria, how you doing? And she looked at me with the coldest look, like, and she didn't answer me. She didn't even answer me. She kept walking.
Wow.
And I'm scratching my head saying, what did I do? I couldn't figure it out. And then a couple of years later, somebody told me that Maria does not like Arnold's bodybuilding friends, with one exception, Franco.
Yeah.
That's the only guy. And you know what? I bet deep down she didn't even like Franco, but she knew that Arnold loved Franco so much, and when they were so close, she had to accept Franco.
Right.
So, but the other bodybuilders, she just didn't. Even at the Arnold show, she didn't. She just kind of, give the vibe, keep away from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just I don't know whether she thought she was just superior because she's a Kennedy. I don't know what went through her head. She just or maybe she just didn't like the way they acted or whatever. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But that's that's the way it was. So
yeah. In Franco's book, he really was a hard worker because I read when he was in Italy and he was living at home with his parents and he was a bricklayer, like you said, and then he said he wanted to be a boxer. So him and his friend. They went to a boxing gym, which was like 10 miles away. And he came home and he told his mom, I'm going to be a boxer. His dream was to fight in Madison Square Garden, he said, because he saw some boxer on TV. So the mother goes nuts. She goes, you want to hit people for a living? You got to make money. You got to make money for the family, So he compromised, and what he did was he'd work all day as a bricklayer. Then he'd come home and he'd do the chores around the house, whatever he had to do. Then he would ride his bike 10 miles to the boxing gym. Then he would practice boxing, and then he would ride back 10 miles. And he did this every day.
Amazing,
so that guy was a hard worker.
Oh, a lot of motivation there, I'll tell you. Tremendous motivation. But, he really did work hard, Franco. It's just that I never saw him work hard in the gym. I mean,
that's wild.
Honestly, when I think back, I didn't even see him lift heavy that much. Just occasionally, he would do like heavy deadlifts or heavy benches, but he didn't do it regularly.
Yeah.
And I used to, because I could understand Arnold's physique because I saw Arnold train hard, especially before a contest. But I never saw Franco train hard. And I always used to wonder, how does this guy look this good? I mean, I would look like crap. I mean, if I trained like him, I'd have no physique at all.
Right.
And nobody, but he looked great. He was amazing like that. I mean, he just very responsive.
Yeah.
I got to give him credit. I mean, he was just an amazing responsive to the training. Anything he did, he looked good. It worked for him.
Yeah.
It worked. Well, I mean, you can't say he did something wrong because it worked.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Just like, to me, it would work for most people. You know?
Right. Well, he was really the first giant killer. You know, before Danny Padilla and before any of these other guys, he was the guy that was the little guy that was beating the big guys. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, he had that back. I mean, I remember that scene in Pumping Iron where Franco's posing.
Sure.
And Danny Padilla, who is also known as a giant killer, he's sitting there and says, "Holy Toledo!" He says, "Look at that back."
Yeah.
It was in awe.
Yeah.
Because Franco was double back and he did that wide lat spread.
Right.
He had a tremendous back, you know.
Yeah.
And I did see Franco do heavy bent over barbell rows. He did I don't remember how much weight he was doing. It was quite a bit of weight. And I remember seeing him do the,
T-bar.
what is it? He did a lot of heavy T-bar rows. Him and Arnold, I saw him do T-bar rows one time. And Arnold struggled. I had a good amount of plates on there. Arnold was struggling. He did about 8-10 reps. Franco got on the same weight and did 12 reps. It looked like he had no weight on the bar. He was so much stronger than Arnold. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he could do heavier weight and curls. Every exercise, he was stronger than Arnold.
Wow, what a freak!
Arnold didn't bother him a bit. You know, Franco was his friend. He wasn't in any competition with him.
Yeah.
Except, you know, a couple of times, you know, for the cameras, they made it look like, you know, you probably saw that when Franco was saying he was going to beat him and this and that. You know, that was strictly for the cameras. That wasn't real in real life. They didn't really have a competition.
Right.
They supported each other. You know.
Right.
I mean, there was nothing like that real. That was only, you know, to create some sort of fake
rivalry.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Rivalry. Right. Yeah. It wasn't real.
Did you ever see him hang by his feet, Jerry?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
you did?
Yeah. He collected that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must feature some famous photos of him hanging by the chinning bar by his feet. Yeah.
Right.
He was you know, the thing about Franco is he was a good example to blow that myth that people had at the time of bodybuilders being all muscle bound.
Right.
Franco did a lot of flexibility things that you wouldn't think were capable. I mean, he could do flips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was actually very agile and supple for, you know, with that much muscle. He kind of disproved that notion, you know, that, you know, they're so big they can't move, they can't. It was all nonsense.
Yeah.
But, you know, Franco disproved that. He was very athletic.
Yeah.
Franco, very athletic, much more athletic than Arnold. Very athletic guy.
Yeah, what a great athlete.
I think Franco could have excelled in any sport he went into because, you know, like you said, he had that motivation, whether it was boxing or anything. Powerlifting would have been a great power lifter, Olympic lifter even, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if MMA was around back then, you know, probably good at that too.
Right.
I mean, because he was I think he had, even before he lifted weights, I think he just was a really strong guy from all that work he did.
Yeah.
You know, I think he had a lot of power, you know, and if he was taught the skills of something like mixed martial arts, I think he'd be one of those knockout guys. You see where he goes and hits the guy and the fight's over.
Right.
I think he might have been one of those guys.
And I never saw him fat. He was always ripped.
No, I never saw him once fat. Never. He's one of those guys. Off season, never saw. Always had abs. Never. I mean, he'd get a little smaller in the off season, but not much. Franco was one of those guys. A guy like Arnold. I mean, you see him like 3 months after the contest, and there was like nothing left. I mean, his delts would disappear. He had the big biceps. Triceps was gone. Thighs gone. Still had the big calves. Pecs just about disappeared.
Wow.
You know, always had the bicep and calves though. They never disappeared.
Yeah.
Franco hardly changed. I mean, he looked almost like he could compete in a contest 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And he did the same thing Arnold did off season. He'd come in for 15 minutes.
Right.
I don't know how. He's an amazing bodybuilder in that respect.
Yeah.
He looked good all the time. I never saw him get fat, not once.
Yeah, me neither.
Even later on, when he quit training, he never really got fat.
Right.
You know what I mean? He shrunk down a lot. I mean, his arms and legs disappeared. You know, but I mean, I never saw him where we'd say he was fat. No, I never saw him like that.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's why it's so surprising that he had that heart attack. Like you and I both said, he thought he'd live to 100 years old.
Yeah, that's what I can't figure out, John. I mean, hopefully some details will come out. he just, I mean, with the genetics that he had, with him being so, I don't know. I don't. You see, what I don't know is a lot of things. I never saw him smoke. Do you know if he smoked? I never saw him smoke.
Just cigars with Arnold, but never cigarettes.
Yeah, cigars I've seen him smoking, but I mean, in Sardinia, you know, a lot of the men do, in Europe especially, they smoke a lot. Cigarettes.
Yeah.
I don't know if Franco smoked. I don't know what his risk factors were. You know, I don't know whether he had high cholesterol or something like that. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why a guy like him would get a heart attack. Because I don't understand it. I don't right now. I just can't figure it out. Especially a sudden one like that, where, you know, he's swimming in the water and it hits up lightning and boom, he goes right under. I mean,
right.
That's a bad. I mean, that means his heart just literally. I mean, he probably went into what they call ventricular fibrillation, whereas where the left ventricle stops beating, it looks like a bag of worms. You know, if you look at it, it's not pumping any blood.
Yeah.
When that happens, you're dead in 6 minutes, unless you get an electroshock. You know, where they put the things on you.
Yeah.
That's only. Or somebody could give you CPR, that you know, until they get there. Sometimes they could survive, but other than that, you're dead when that happens. You're dead. You know. I have a funny feeling that's usually when somebody dies fast from a heart attack, that's the usual cause, the ventricular fibrillation.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, I can't figure out what happened to the guy.
Well, I did get to see him compete once in '81. I went to that one, so I did get to see him on stage there at his last show.
What was your impression of him?
You know, he's so criticized for that win, and his legs weren't in proportion, but his upper body was incredible. I mean, I don't think he gets enough credit for how good his upper body looked. I didn't see it in '76, but to me, he looked just as good, if not better, than '76. Like, even his arms were big, and he was ripped. He was probably one of the most ripped guys in the contest. And his back was still good, of course. And, you know, and one thing I noticed about him when they came out for the prejudging and they're all standing up there, he never stopped tensing. Like, he put his arms down, but he was tensing his whole torso, his abs, his pecs, everything. And he looked so much harder than everybody else, you know.
Yeah. Let me ask you, John, did he beat Zane in one of the Olympias, didn't he? Did he beat Frank Zane?
Yeah, in '76, he beat him by 1 point.
Now, did Frank Zane ever beat him after that, to your knowledge? You know?
Not after, but before. I think Zane beat him. Well, Zane won the NABBA Universe when Franco couldn't even win his class. And I think Zane beat him in the Mr. World, the IFBB Mr. World. So Zane beat him a couple times, but then Franco won later on.
Because the reason I asked that is because Franco and Zane seem to have some sort of competition, those two.
Yeah.
I saw a video. I don't know the context, but Franco was saying something about how he'll beat Zane every time. Zane
100
could
times,
never. And I'm thinking, you know, it's a funny statement because they had such different physiques.
Totally different physiques.
You know, Franco was thick and squat, kind of short. Whereas Frank was lithe and kind of long, you know, long, slimmer type of physique. You know what I mean? And it's amazing how these two had some sort of. I guess it's because they were the top guys, so it would be natural for them to be in some sort of competition. But I mean, between the two, who would you pick as having the more favorable physique yourself? What do you think?
Wow, I don't know. Like you said, it's so different. I think Zane at his best was really incredible.
Yeah.
But you know what? Zane did beat him in the '72 Olympia. That was both Zane and Franco's first Olympia, and Zane got 4th and Franco got 5th. So he did beat him there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would go with Zane because of just a nicer looking physique.
Yeah.
For pure muscle, you'd have to give it to Franco.
Yeah.
In other words, if they were competing in the show, both of them together, and they had a most muscular award like they used to have, I would give it to Franco over Zane for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The amount of muscle mass and thickness Franco had, Frank Zane never approached that.
Yeah,
he just had
Franco always had a hard time at that NABBA universe because they like the more symmetrical type of physiques like Chris Dickerson and Frank Zane. And I remember he went into one contest. He went into a couple, and he lost to Wilf Sylvester. Remember that bodybuilder from the UK?
Yeah,
he lost to him, and then he lost to Dickerson. And I seen the picture, and he was much more muscular and ripped than Dickerson. But they would always give him the most muscular trophy. They had a most muscular trophy. And then in this book I read, he said he went up to the judges after the first NABBA Universe he was in, and he said, "How could I lose?" And they said, "Well, Franco, you're too muscular." And he goes, "Well, isn't that the point?"
It's that funny thing. It reminds me, I think I might have mentioned that that's what they used to tell Vince Caranda.
Yeah, you told me that.
When he competed in the 50s, he was the only guy that had vascularity and deep abs.
Right.
All the other guys were smooth back then. They were smooth,
right.
And after about 3 losses, Vince went up to the judge and said, I don't get it. I said, I'm so much more muscular than these guys.
Right.
And you know what they said? But nobody looks like you. We don't know what to do with you.
Right.
None of the guys look like you. Nobody has these veins that you have. So the story, he was laughing. He wasn't mad about it.
Right.
He thought it was hilarious that he lost because he was too muscular.
Right.
Bodybuilding show.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's kind of like comparable to what they said about the female bodybuilders. Remember the Miss Olympias the last couple of years? I mean, they were saying, well, they're too muscular. They're too muscular. And no, look, not everyone likes the look of hardcore female bodies, but isn't that the point?
Right.
I mean, seriously. I mean, when you think about it, aren't they supposed to get as muscular as possible?
Right.
How could you lock them down?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like a runner where he's running too fast and he loses.
Right.
You ran too fast. You were way back to the pack. We can't give it to you.
Right.
It's like nuts. It's bizarre.
Right. Well, Zane said that when they would compete in the Mr. Olympia in New York, Franco always had an advantage because he would actually, I couldn't believe this, but I saw a picture of it, and it was from the Mr. Olympia. He would come out on stage sometime during the contest that night, and he would deadlift. He would do a deadlift exhibition during the contest while he was competing in the contest, and he would deadlift like 700 pounds. So then Zane said he had an unfair advantage because the judges liked him so much because he did that Zane could never beat him in New York,
I saw. You just reminded me of something. I saw Franco do that in a contest out here. It was a Mr. What was it? Mr. Western America, I believe it was. Arnold was the promoter. I competed.
Oh, really?
I was in the Mr. Western America. I think I got second in the tall class or something like that. I think it was 74, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But in that contest, Franco did a deadlifting exhibition. And a friend of mine, Dave Dupree, you remember Dave?
Yeah.
Dave Dupree competed against him. And I think there might have been a third guy. I don't remember who the third guy was. But they were doing deadlifts like in between the contests.
Yeah.
Franco also did over 700 pounds. He beat Dave. Dave was pretty strong too.
Yeah, I heard that.
I don't think Dave got the 700. I think he got 650, something like that. But Franco won that little deadlift competition. Yeah, he did that. I saw him do that. He did that. Yeah, very strong guy.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, he never had back problems. Amazing, isn't it? I never heard. He never had any back. Did all those heavy deadlifts and never had any back.
Especially the way he would used to deadlift. I seen videos of him doing it, and he would pull it up so hard, and his body was like twisting and stuff. I'm like, wow, it just looked like he was a candidate for back problems for sure,
And a lot of times he would, I hate to say it, but he would do it wrong in the sense that when you first lift, if you're doing it the powerlifting deadlift style, you're supposed to, the first third of the movement, you're supposed to lift it with your legs, with your back arched. That protects your lower back from injury. If you round your back, you could, there's no support in the lower back. You have support on your spinal erector muscles until they get to the lumbar area, and then the muscles are as thin as ribbons. There's like no support for the vertebrae there. So if you round your back with a heavy weight, you could pop a vertebrae in a snap.
Yeah.
And a couple of times I saw him lift like that, and I almost turned away. Oh my God, his back
right.
Didn't.
Right.
He never his back.
No.
He must have. I mean, this guy must have had a back of steel. Seriously.
I know.
How he got away with that? Seriously.
And then when he would do those heavy T-bars, his legs were locked, like they weren't even bent.
That's another mistake.
Yeah.
You always. So you're supposed to, as you leave your knees unlocked to take some of the stress off your back.
Right. His legs were locked and straight. And
he still didn't hurt it. I don't know how. The guy was a superhuman, seriously.
He was. It was amazing.
I mean, I don't know what happened to Franco, but I mean, this is a guy who, 2 weeks ago, if you would have said to me, like I said earlier, if you said, hey, Jerry, which bodybuilder, famous body, you think will definitely make it to 100? First name would have been Franco.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I have a reason. A lot of people my reasoning for that, a lot of people don't know. If you look it up, you'll check it out, you'll see the men of Sardinia, There's some sort of genetic quirk they have where a lot of them live to over 100. That's the reason. And also the fact is that Franco didn't look unhealthy. I mean, he never got obese. He didn't show any risk signs that would preclude longevity. So couple that with the possible genetic advantage he had, I'd say, okay, this guy's going to live to 100. So I'm like shocked.
So when you say genetic advantage, that's people that are born on an island have a gene that allows them to live longer.
Yeah, the men on that island, they call it a blue zone. In other words, there's certain areas of the world where the people, the men especially, they tend to live a little bit longer than usual for various reasons. In Sardinia, they noticed it, and not long ago, they found that the men have a certain genetic mutation that favors longevity. I haven't looked in a long time. I have to look it up to see exactly how it works. But a lot of the men, and as I said, if you look at his father, pumping iron, when Franco lifted that little car, moved it around, I mean, the father, that was that old guy in the background wearing the cap.
He looked like Popeye.
He looked a lot like Popeye. But, I mean, the guy had to be like at least 85. He looked like 85 years old back then. Right. And that was his 70s.
Right.
You know, I have a funny feeling. I don't know how long his father lived, but I bet he made it to 100.
Yeah, probably.
He looked good. I mean, he was able to walk around. He looked good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what happened with Franco.
Well, I hate to mention it, but do you think the steroid use had anything to do with the heart attack?
You know, I know some people would say that, but Franco has been off steroids for so long. Yeah. You know, I mean, gee, it had to be, well over 45 years, something like that. I don't think so, because if you look at how steroids work, almost all the side effects they do, like, you know, the changes they incur in the body are reversible. That's what they found in science study. When a bodybuilder gets off the steroids, especially the oral stuff, everything that, you know, the changes in blood lipids, liver changes, all these things revert to normal when they get off the steroids. The only thing that they found currently is that bodybuilders today, you know, like the younger guys, you know, they're getting a little bit faster closure of their coronary arteries. Like there was a recent study, 25-year-old bodybuilders taking steroids already had 25% closure of two of their coronary arteries. They're only 25 years old.
Jeez.
Now, the thing is, and the other thing is, the guys, and this is a warning, if there's any pros watching this, take heed. The guys who use the really massive amounts of steroids, like the pros, they're causing structural changes in their heart that are permanent, that predispose them to congestive heart failure when they get older. If these guys aren't really careful after their competition days, they're going to get congestive heart failure. In other words, they can't let themselves get fat. They got to continue to exercise. They can't eat junk food. They got to be real careful because they have caused damage to their heart. You know what I mean? So, you know, I wish the best for all of them. I don't want to see anyone die. Yeah. What I'm saying is that in relation to Franco, as you know, people are asking, the guys back then didn't use anything like the guys today. Nope. Insulin damages your arteries. Insulin alone can cause heart problems.
No growth hormone.
No growth hormone. Growth hormone can cause an enlargement of the heart. I mean, these guys didn't touch that stuff. The stuff that, I mean, Arnold used Primobolan, a little Dianabol, sometimes Winstrol. Franco used the same thing that Arnold did, the same steroid program.
Right.
I saw both of them take it right in front of me. One of the few people that saw them actually take steroids. I think I told you the story. Yeah. And Arnold's you know, and it was a joke. The dosage they took was a joke.
Right.
I mean, women bodybuilders, they use more. I'll go even further. The fitness women probably use more steroids than the bodybuilders in the 70s.
Than Arnold and Franco did.
They hardly used them. So to answer your question, I don't think the steroids played any role in Franco's stuff, because he was off it for so many years. Yeah. And, you know, he didn't take enough to cause damage.
Right.
You know, it wouldn't cause damage, the amount, that he used. It would not cause damage.
Yeah, I don't want to believe it either, but, you know that's going to come up. People are going to say that. You know?
Well, any bodybuilder, you know, who dies of a heart attack saying, oh, he took, you know, it's just the steroids, you know. Right. The guy could have taken it 90 years ago, and they'll still blame it on steroids. It's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah. But like you said, the 81 was probably the last time he took them.
Yeah.
So that was, 91, 2001, like almost 40 years ago. So.
Yeah, he's not, I don't think he's taking any steroids.
No.
But, today, more relevant is when you hear about, like, these young bodybuilders like Dallas McCarver a couple of years ago, dead at 26. that's when you can see that, this is a definite cause and effect relationship.
Yeah.
Drugs he was using and his premature death. That definitely is a connection. There's no clue. Even there, I don't know the exact connection. I just heard that he was using a lot of stuff, and also he had a genetic history of heart disease in his family. That's a deadly combination, and you saw what it did. It killed him at 26 years old. So
yeah,
but the guys years ago, whatever happens to like a guy like Franco, I don't think you could. It would be really far out to try and blame it on the steroids.
Plus, like you said too, Jerry, they would all get off them for a long time, right after the show was over.
Yeah, Arnold and Franco. Look, Arnold. I've heard rumors that he took a little bit for some of his movies.
Yeah.
Like the Conan movie, to get in shape and this and that. But even then, he didn't take a lot of stuff. And the heart problem that Arnold had, the valve problem he had, where he had to have the valve replacement in the late 90s. You remember right after he did the Man movie, he went in for elective surgery, and the thing is, as Arnold himself says, his mother had the same condition.
Yeah.
It was a genetic predisposition. It had nothing to do with steroids. And some people have said, well, do you think the steroids might have exacerbated it or made it worse? No, because if it did, he would have had the problem as a competitive bodybuilder. Not, 20, 30 years afterwards?
Right.
No, he got it because he was getting older. And when as you get older, tissues wear out, and genetic problems like that, they're going to come to the fore. Like me, for example, I have genetics for type 2 diabetes. I never had any blood glucose problems at all until I was in my mid-50s. Nothing. My father had diabetes. He died of complications. Both grandfathers. All throughout my family, never had any problem till I hit my mid-50s. Why? Because the genetics, things change in the body where it allowed the genetics to come to the fore.
Yeah.
I do everything I can to control it, exercise and diet and all that. But the point is that with Arnold, the thing is, it happened because he was genetically predisposed. It would have happened whether he took steroids or not. That's what I'm trying to say. So a lot of people won't believe that, but that's the truth.
Yeah, Arnold elected to have that surgery. He got ahead of it, I think, because his mother died of that, and then he said, "Well, I'm gonna get the surgery done so I don't have a problem later in life."
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, there was a complication. Where the doctors stood by. But thank God they did. Something went wrong, and they had to go right back in. The story, a whole team of doctors. Luckily, this time it was successful. But I mean, if all the doctors had went home and said Arnold would be dead.
Right.
Arnold would have died. Arnold would have died because his valve blew out.
Right.
Didn't work. But they were there to repair. Thank God for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I gave Arnold quite. He's still doing pretty good. I don't know the state of Arnold's health, but he looks okay to me. He looks fine.
Yeah, he looks healthy. He rides his bike a lot. He still works out. Yeah. Yeah,
Arnold does work out.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm friendly with Arnold's son, Joseph. Joseph. The last. And I can tell you, the guy is a terrific guy. He's a great guy. I told him I'm an old friend of his father, and we talk when I see him. Really nice guy, just the nicest guy you can imagine. I mean, no airs about him. He doesn't even mention his father until you talk about him.
Right.
And last time I saw him, it turned out I said to him, it was his birthday, and I said to him, I met your dad when he was 21, and he said to me, today's my birthday. I'm 21 today.
Wow.
That's a coincidence,
That's crazy.
Just the nicest guy, just a really good guy. His son,
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I met his other sons too, but they're nice. The youngest son I don't know, but the oldest son who does the acting, I met him years ago. I don't know Arnold's daughter. I never met her either.
Yeah.
But the two sons I met, they're both great guys.
Yeah.
Just really friendly, good guys. I
That's
like
great.
it. I'm sure his other kids are too. I just, yeah.
All right, Jerry. Well, thank you for joining me to talk about Franco. He was really an icon and a legend in the sport, and we're all going to miss him. I think you and I were both, and everybody, the whole bodybuilding community was shocked to see that he passed away. And we're all getting older, and I know we're all going to go sometime, but it's just sad to see all our heroes die. As we get older, it's Ed Corney, and then, like I said, Sergio and Serge Dubray and Vince Garanda and all these guys. It's just it's tough to watch them go away.
Yeah, it's very, very sad to me. It's very emotionally hard for me to see these guys that, I knew since I was a kid. It's tough. I almost dread going on Facebook or any of these social media because you never know when there's going to be another announcement of somebody dying.
Yeah.
Oh God, I dread it.
Yeah.
I hope everybody stays healthy and is happy. It's all I could say.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right, Jared. Well, thank you for joining me, and have fun at your Labor Day show tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to the Muscle Beach show tomorrow. Yeah.
Who are they inducting into the Hall of Fame?
A guy named Dick Tyler. Do you remember a guy named?
I read his book, West Coast Muscle. Was it West Coast Muscle?
Yeah, I think Larry and Dave Draper published that book. But Dick Tyler was actually goes so far back. He was in the early '60s, right? He was writing for Weider, and he eventually became a chiropractor. And I never met the guy. Oh no, I'm sorry, I did meet him. I met him once. I can't remember where, but it was right after that book came out. Larry Draper, Dave's wife, introduced me, and I shook his hand. I told him I loved all your articles. I used to read them, and he wasn't overly friendly, but that's okay, But I just find it a little strange that he's kind of being inducted in the Muscle Beach Hall of Fame. I don't get the connection there,
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not questioning. Joe Wheatley's a great guy. I love Joe Wheatley, the promoter of Muscle Beach, but I don't see the connection of Dick Tyler, and he's not coming either. He's not.
Oh, really?
I guess he's in his 80s. He's not in good health. He's way back east somewhere.
Okay.
So John Bailick, has accepted the award for him. Well, that's great. It's okay, but I myself would have, chosen somebody else to get that award. Nothing against.
They'll have to induct you pretty soon, Jerry.
What's that?
I said they'll have to induct you pretty soon.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever get in because they're running out of space. Apparently.
I heard that. Yeah.
Either this year or next year, I can't remember. The last year, Joe told me. So I'm never going to get in. And between me and you, one of the guys who might get in is Bill Dobbins, who I would vote for. Because I'm one of the guys that vote for the inductees.
Oh, okay.
I'd vote for Bill because, he's been around. I mean, he's a little bit closer. He's been at Muscle Beach enough where I could see him getting in,
Yeah.
So it's nice to see a guy who's a writer or photographer get in there too,
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Unfortunately, I'll never get in. What I have to do is, how they have the plaques there around the weight pit there where the inductees. A lot of people, I had to explain to somebody that They said all these people are buried here. It's
like a graveyard.
Joe laughed when I told him the story. I said, because they look like grave plaques.
Right.
You know what I mean? He said, no, they're just plaques. They were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Their bodies are not here. And then one guy said, what they do is, you see that water out there? They just drag the bodies in, let the ocean take them.
What a place to be buried, though, right underneath the weight pit.
I mean, talk about that. It's like a joke I made about Bill when I wrote an article about Bill Graham years ago. I said, Bill is so motivated to train that he'll be training after he dies. He'll be doing deadlifts.
Right.
I thought it was really a joke at the time. So. That's my own joke anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right.
All right, Jared. Well, thank you for joining me for this Franco tribute. There was nobody better to talk about Franco than you, so I'm glad you got a chance to join me.
Keep up those. I like that you send me those links. I love listening. I really enjoy your interviews with all the greats. I mean, it's very entertaining to me, to hear the guys talk and stuff like that. I mean, you're the only one doing this, so keep doing it. You're doing it. It's a terrific job. I love it.
Well, that was one of the things I was really sad about with Franco. I never got a chance to interview him. I tried reaching out to him, but I could never get a hold of him,
Yeah, that's a shame. It would have been a great interview. I'm sure. It would have been great. Yeah. That is it. Well, one of these days, hopefully you'll get Arnold on.
Yeah, that's my dream. Yeah.
If I run into Arnold, I'm going to tell him seriously to contact you.
Okay.
Because I think I will. I'm serious. I said, you got to speak to this guy, John Hansen. He's like a bodybuilding historian. He's a great guy. I said, you should do an interview with this guy.
Yeah.
Definitely. And he's a bodybuilder himself, unlike a lot of the people doing interviews. John's a champion bodybuilder,
Yeah, well, I would even come out to California to interview Arnold, of course,
No, next time I see Arnold, it's the first thing I'm going to say to him. Seriously.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I will.
All right, Jerry.
Okay,
All right.
John, take.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
joining me.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bodybuilding Heroes and Legends Volume 1 by John Hansen is the book that celebrates the golden age of bodybuilding. This was the era in which legends such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sergio Oliva, Frank Zane, Robbie Robinson, Cal Scalak, and Mike Menser battled it out on stage for the biggest titles in bodybuilding. Read about some of the most exciting competitions that took place in the 1970s, including the Oliva-Schwarzenegger battles, Zane's first Olympia victory, and Scalak's controversial Mr. Olympia appearance, and much more. Filled with inspiring images of some of the greatest bodybuilders in the history of the sport, Bodybuilding Heroes and Legends Volume 1 is now available on Amazon.com or email John directly at naturalolympia@gmail.com.